information from our friends, our spouses, or whatever, we find some way to either argue our way out of it, right? Or if we can't do that, what do we say? Well, you're crazy.
Rationalize it away
until you're not in a state of conflict anymore. I've got a belief that says free money doesn't exist. I've got conflicting information I'm being confronted with. I didn't ask for this conflict, meaning that I stepped into it inadvertently. I'm walking along the street, and all of a sudden I see this sign that says free money today only. It completely violates what I believe to be true. What do I do about it? I say, well, it's not true. And as a result, this guy must be crazy. So as a result, my belief that free money doesn't exist, manage my perception of the information in a way that's consistent with what I believe. My expectation was one of possible threat or danger. The guy I decided was crazy. My behavior is I take a wide path around this particular person to avoid encountering him. And how do I feel about the results?
Good.
Good. Yeah, I did good, didn't I? Okay? I avoided a possible conflict with a crazy person.
The belief ruled all of your actions.
That's right. The belief ruled the whole process. It created an experience that was completely, let's say, out of touch with the reality of the situation. From the environment's perspective, the belief that we operated out of in that moment as an example, or the typical person that saw the sign, the way the belief, impacted their perception, their expectation, their behavior, and how they felt about the results, created a reality for them, meaning an experience, a reality for them that was 100% or 180 degrees away from what was available from the environment's perspective. And
good morning, guys. Dakota back from the live stream. Today is August 20th, 2021, and going to be wrapping up the second part, or basically, I'm going to be finishing my review of the second year backtesting today. If this is your first time on the call, what I do on here every weekday, 7 a.m., I hop on live stream, look at the live charts, give my analysis on the pairs I'm paying attention to, and anything that's requested. All you gotta do is type in the live chat, and we'll talk about it. And right now, I'm going through a 5-year backtesting project on dollar yen, and just doing that for the next few weeks. Got about 2 more weeks. 1, 2, about 3 more weeks is when I plan to have it completely done. But I'm actually ahead of schedule, so may get done earlier. Let's go ahead and dive into the live charts. Alright, we'll look at Bitcoin last. Euro JPY scaling down correctively. Gonna be watching this on the 4-hour time frame. No other time frame really interests me right now. With this, we see it slowing down. The impulse is slowing down, but it is still scaling down below this level. If it keeps on moving correctly, start looking for a descending channel or reversal pattern, and possibly even just any reversal pattern. We'll just say that. I'll stop it there. Any reversal pattern to happen here. If we do get a solid correction, that's something that we want to keep our eye on, but it's not something that I'm going to be looking to sell at because of the area that I'm at right here. This is the area where it's telling me to buy at, so I shouldn't be looking for sales in this situation. If that trend line breaks, definitely waiting for a correction and executing on a buying opportunity. Come on now. All right. Next, Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar has hit targets and gone beyond targets. I'm keeping this up because I want to take a screenshot for after the trade, right? To see how far it went, to see what level it actually ended up testing, if it goes all the way down to this level as I was looking for it to do, or if I should just maintain my target like technique. But I just got to gather a lot of screenshots on that. But other than this, same thing, waiting for correction, looking for a short-term sell, and then looking for price to reverse. If price goes all the way down to this level before giving us that correction, not going to be looking for that sell anymore. Alright, Euro USD, which is probably really the only thing that's I'm really waiting to set up right now on the 1 hour time frame. Okay, this is what's in my head. Let's go to the daily first. Daily, we have this descending channel. It's approaching this demand zone where I'm looking for buying opportunities at, and it's coming down to a demand area. Let's go to the 1 hour again. Now on the 1 hour, there's another descending channel here. I'm waiting for that to break, and after that break, I'd like to see a correction and a buying opportunity. Now, I have another trend line here, so we could see resistance at that level, but this level, this demand zone, is way stronger than this area. So this is just a precursor. Like, this is just another line saying if this trend line breaks, wait for a correction after there, and then look for a impulse to move up. So it's just giving me two opportunities. First opportunity, break of this pattern, correction. Second opportunity, break of this trend line, correction, buy. Right. And ultimately looking for it to break out of this pattern, but obviously I have to manage it and see where it goes. And these targets, SLs, are going to be changed. This is just a rough estimate. Oh, excuse me. What's the shortcut to like delete whole words? I know there's a shortcut for that. I'm gonna look that up. Just type okay. All right, let's go to gold. Oops. Nothing. It's in the same spot we looked at yesterday. And at this point, like, I don't even want to look at it, honestly. So what I'm seeing, it's set up for a buying opportunity, but like I said, in this area, that's not an area that I'd like to buy at because there's strong selling pressure here. Could happen, price could round itself out, come to here, and then drop. Something that I see that's interesting on lower time frame are, again, lower time frame buys, which unfortunately I wouldn't take it. I would not take it. But there's a 15-minute uptrend here that you can possibly catch a few buys on. We see that we're creating lower lows here. And price just made new high. It's unfortunate. I'd like something way clear. It's not worth it. Okay. US 30. You know, I'm thinking about yesterday's call right now, and I don't think I timestamped yesterday. I don't remember doing that, so I'm gonna go back and check. later. I'm gonna write it down to remind myself. Okay, US 30 has started the correction. I'd like it to have one more wave up and then look for that selling opportunity. Yeah, that would be cool. That would be nice. That'd be nice to see. Now, alternatively, if the trend line breaks here, looking for price to push up, and if it does push up, I'm not looking for it to reject at this level. I'm looking for it to push beyond and go back to the top. Yeah, so the screenshot should already be sent out for that. Yeah, it is. Move it here, so yeah, okay. All right, let's go back. Okay, so I like to see a pattern failure here on the 15-minute time frame, price reverse, and come back up to that level. Not much to talk about there. What's next? It's the same analysis as yesterday. I know it's tracking. I want to take a quick look at cable. Here, it broke to the zone. I think we actually, yeah, I already talked about this. I said I was going to study this position because it did exactly how my analysis was initially, and that tends to happen. Just trusting the original analysis, like the weekend analysis. Most of the time, my weekend analysis just plays out, and if I make a shift in the middle of the week, I pretty much deter from the original setup, and the original setup plays out. Let's go to Bitcoin. So knowing that, I should probably just stick to the weekend analysis. Bitcoin has started to make a push up. Looking for these highs to be broken, another correction, another buy. Like, it's like there's nothing there's nothing really set up today. For me at least. Man, so I won't be trading. AD and ZD is at a make it or break it level. And DakotaJPayne requested pair is already played out fully. Price is breaking below this area, which is going to be a nice change for this pair. So in this situation, the head and shoulders I was talking about, I mean, obviously did play out, or it's starting to play out. The neckline's broken. Just looking for it to continue down. Looking for rejection there. Price already pushed up on AD. Jeez. What's the other one? The other one that should have done that was GA, right? Yeah. Code GA never gave a correction, at least at that level. That'll be fun. This looks like a fun opportunity that I had for next week. Alright, I think that's, yeah, there's nothing. Yeah, today's really just a practice day. Just gathering data today. I mean, of course, I'm gonna go ahead, come back and like check if anything changes, but right now it looks like there's nothing there. Okay, so like I said, going to start the review. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So about 20. I have about 20 more. I got a lot done Wednesday and Thursday, so this shouldn't be take too long at all. Man. Okay. Yeah, let's get started.
Interestingly enough, if you gathered those people together and asked them what they experienced, they would tell you what they experienced based on what they because their experience reinforced their belief. And if encountering the same situation again, what would they do? The same thing. Why? Because they didn't learn anything. Nothing changed. And so they'll experience, if they encountered someone with a sign again, they would experience the exact same thing.
Even if they had feedback?
No, not saying if they had feedback. No, we're not talking about feedback. We're just talking about how, I'm just talking about the impact that beliefs have on what we experience in relationship to what's available. The belief rules, exactly right. So now you can, just as a little side note, now you can start to see when I say that if I believe that I don't need to know what's going to happen next to make money, or I believe that anything can happen, or I believe that it only takes one trader somewhere in the world to negate the positive outcome of my edge, am I not going to put a stop in the market? Am I not going to predefine my risk? Can I possibly do that if I have those beliefs? I couldn't do it. I couldn't make that mistake. I couldn't make that error. Or that every moment is unique, as long as I understand the real implications of the word unique. This moment is not like any other, even though it may seem like it. See, this moment is unique won't let me think that I know what's going to happen. It won't let me think that. And since I know I don't have to know, then it doesn't become an issue, does it? Think about that. This moment is unique, won't let me think that I know, and because I believe that I don't need to know, it's not even an issue. So that I stay in the now moment, meaning what's the market telling me about its potential to move based on the pattern that exists right now. I just wanted to do a little reinforcing there. Is that all right, guys? That's good, right? Okay, so, again, if all these people, we gather together all these people to, get their feedback in terms of what they got out of this, they would relate the experience in a way that was completely consistent with what they experienced, because the experience itself reinforced the belief, creating a closed loop. The belief acts as a force on our perception of information in a way that's consistent with the belief. What we expect is consistent with the belief. What we do and what we do is going to be consistent with the belief. Therefore, the experience that we have will be consistent with the belief, and therefore everything gets reinforced, and nothing that might exist outside that circle even has the possibility of entering into to break the circle. But like Sean said, let's say, for example, you've got somebody that just takes a kind of what if attitude. What if? What if it's real? Or what have I got to lose to find out? And so this person just goes up and says, okay, give me $10. And the guy reaches in his pocket, pulls out a $10 bill, and hands the $10 bill to the person. Now what? Now we look at the dynamics. Now what? What?
Wish you'd ask for more.
Well, yeah, well, I was going to get to that. Right. Wish you asked for more. Right. Typical trader's mentality is ask for more. However, okay, let's look at the dynamics here. What happens?
You get free money sometimes.
Okay, you get free money sometimes. What happens to this belief about free money not existing?
It
As an
loses some of
addendum
its
to it.
energy.
Weakened some.
Yeah, we pulled some energy out of it, didn't we? In fact, when you look at the nature of this particular concept and how definitive it is, we can say that what we've really done is pretty much neutralize it. Because you can't say it doesn't exist, because it does exist. It's not black and white. It might not be common, but it does exist. And so what happened? In essence, we used the vernacular, he changed the belief. We really didn't change the belief. We've got two contradictory beliefs inside of his mental system. One that says free money doesn't exist, one that says it does. Which has more energy? Probably the one that says that it does, because under similar circumstances, is he going to hesitate asking for the money? Not at all. He'd be the first one in line, right? Oh, I remember that. Okay? Yeah, okay. I know what's happening. I know what's happening here. And interestingly enough, when you have this kind of experience where you have, let's say, been pleasantly surprised with an experience that contradicts a limitation, you might say, because this is a limitation, and pleasantly surprised, what are you going to do? You're going to want to share that with everybody, right? Not everybody, but most everybody. You're going to go home, you're going to go back to the office, you're going to be maybe even jumping up and down, and virtually the same three words will roll out of everyone's mouth when you confront, let's say, whoever it is that you want to tell. What are you going to say? How are you going to start your story? What three words are you going to use to start your story?
Won't believe it.
Yeah.
You won't believe. Right. You won't believe. You're saying, hey, you won't believe this, and you're what? You're right. They won't. You want them to believe it. But you're right. They probably won't. thing.
Goes against their belief.
It goes against their belief that free money exists. And so they will interpret your story as being a fabric of your imagination, or just maybe something you're trying to pull over on them. Whatever way they might interpret why you're saying what you're saying, they will find a way to rationalize it away so that they're not in a state of conflict. By the fact that you're confronting them with information that completely contradicts what they believe to be true. You guys with me on this? And interestingly enough, let's look at the state of mind. This is the critical factor here. State of mind. The relative degree of positiveness or negative energy that's rolling through our brain and body. Okay? Because essentially, or let's say eventually, by tomorrow afternoon, what we're going to learn about the nature of consistency is that it's really a function of your state of mind. Specifically not a function, or how much money you accumulate as a trader is not a function of how much time you expose yourself to the opportunities. Not at all. It is a function of your state of mind. That's a big one. That's a tough one to learn.
You say that again?
That the amount of money you accumulate as a trader is not a function of how much time you spend exposing yourself to the opportunities, as most people think that it is. Now, the more opportunities I expose myself to, it would make sense that the more money I should be able to accumulate. And I'm saying that is expressly not the case. The amount of money you accumulate is a function of your state of mind while you're trading. If you're in the most conducive state of mind to be making money, you will make and keep more money whether you traded 5 minutes a day or 5 hours a day, if you can stay focused in the most appropriate state of mind. And so the whole idea is that if you're not in the most appropriate state of mind, then again, don't trade. It's like putting money in the bank. And that's basically what I meant yesterday. But let's look at the state of mind. What time is it, by the way?
10:40.
Okay, but let's look at the state of mind that each one of these beliefs produce. The people who believe that free money didn't exist and walked around that particular person, you could say that there are varying degrees of discomfort based on how crazy they thought the person was. The crazier they thought the person was, the greater the degree of discomfort. So you could take someone who really thought the person was crazy, and instead of just taking 5 or 6 feet, there's a one-to-one correlation. You can even measure it, basically. How far away they would go out of their way and alter their path would be in direct relationship to the degree of discomfort, meaning the degree of negative energy that was in their belief about how crazy this person was. To the point where somebody might even just cross the street just to stay on the other side of the street. And so their experience of the situation was, let's say, close to, if this was terror, okay, and this is confidence, you could say that someone could actually create for themselves an experience of fear or terror. When that's not what existed at all. Go ahead, Michelle.
Mark, there's a little problem with the microphone, so can you just take it?
Now, what we were talking about before we went on break, was that we were talking about various states of mind and how whatever beliefs we're operating out of in any given moment will basically control or determine what state of mind that we're in. In other words, the energy of the belief that we're operating out of will correspond with the state of mind that we experience. So, for an example, the people that decided, based on their belief that free money didn't exist, that the person had to be crazy. And what does it mean to interact with a crazy person? Well, who knows? But if anything, at the very least, it could be threatening or dangerous. And therefore, once it was decided, based on that kind of thought pattern that I just went through, that it was threatening or dangerous, they experienced a state of mind that corresponded exactly with what they believed. Because when you think about it, just for a moment, what we're experiencing in any given moment is a state of mind. Are we not? That's what's real. What's real in any given moment is our state of mind. What we're going to find is that the beliefs that may have tapped us into any particular state of mind may not have any relevancy whatsoever to the actual conditions that existed in that moment from the environment's perspective. So you've got one person or a number of people who thought he was crazy, and therefore their experiences of the situation were, if this is neutral right here, we're on this side, on the negative side, varying degrees of a negative state of mind. And as a result of feeling that negative energy, they reinforce their belief. Whereas the guy who operated out of the what if question and decided to try the experience out and ended up with $10, what did he experience? Excitement. And excited to the point where he wanted to share that excitement with everyone he knew. And therefore would go and, people that he knew that he'd encounter, he'd say, hey, you won't believe what happened to me today. But as Louis pointed out, the moment that he encountered somebody who said, well, if that's the case, then why didn't he ask for $100? What's going to happen? Or if it occurs to him that he should have asked for $100, what's going to happen to his state of mind? Change from what? Positive, from excitement to regret. Okay? Instantaneously. Because of what? Because of a belief about missing opportunities. Right? What if you didn't have a belief about missing opportunities? Meaning, what if you didn't believe that missed opportunities didn't exist? How could I even say that, right? Is it possible to even believe that missed opportunities don't exist? Sure it is. Because if you were capable of taking advantage of whatever it is you perceived was available in any given moment, you'd have done it. And by the mere fact that you didn't or didn't take advantage of it to the extent that you would have liked to only indicates something that you need to learn. So it was an opportunity to find out what you need to learn. So you really didn't miss anything. You gained something. Now, if you really believe that, would you flip into a state of regret? No, you wouldn't. And you would stay positively focused, right?
And then ready for the next opportunity.
And ready for the next opportunity. And ready to do better.
What was that thought that you should do?
Get it on the tape. Try to write it down right now. Go ahead. Try to write it down as best you can. I'll repeat it for you later, but I want you to try to write it down. Just start out with, what if missed opportunities didn't exist? Start out with that and see what you come up with. So does everyone understand the dynamics involved? Are we getting there about the nature of beliefs? And see, when you think about it, I'll go back to the very beginning when we started this. This whole idea, free money exists, free money doesn't exist, it's an abstract concept when you think about it. It's these letters, these symbols that form into a word, that form into a concept that in essence become a reality. Whether it corresponds with what's actually available from the environment's perspective may or may not correspond at all is what I'm saying. But the point is that just that concept, this energized structure inside of our minds caused them to experience something that was completely 180 degrees contradictory or 180 degrees different than what was available. And yet we would walk away from the experience thoroughly believing that what we experienced was the true reality of the situation, and would argue that, and would defend it.
Religious fundamentalists are, right?
Exactly. But it doesn't really, you don't have to be a religious fundamentalist, Sean. Every belief works that way just about, unless they're open-ended beliefs. So I'm going to give you another example that ties all this together by also bringing how fear causes us to narrow our focus of attention on the object of our fear. And this one's in the trading in the zone. The example I like to use is a first-time experience that a child has with a dog. Now, when you think about this, I want you to think about it in terms of dogs have a range of expression. I'm just going to do it down here. Can you guys see this on the video? Dogs have a range of expression. It is not infinite, is it? Do dogs have an infinite range of expression, ways they can express themselves? No, it's finite. So we can say that this line could represent all the different characteristics and properties of the way dogs can behave. And we can even divide this up into positively charged ways and negatively charged ways. Meaning dogs can be friendly, dogs can be loyal, dogs can be loving, dogs can be playful, but dogs can be mean and nasty and dangerous, right? All these things from the positive end to the negative end and back again. This line now represents all the distinctions that we can make about the nature and characteristics of dogs. Before a child has this first-time experience with a dog, dogs don't exist. Are you with me? How could they exist? You can't know about something you haven't experienced yet. Okay? So in the child's mind, let's say this is a little toddler. In the child's mind, dogs don't exist, and the child now has a first-time encounter with a dog. In other words, remember, the environment can express itself in an infinite combination of ways. The child encounters a dog for the first time. It just so happens this particular dog is having a bad day, mean and nasty, whatever, but the child gets bit and gets bit pretty bad. It turned out to be a really bad situation. Now, does the child have to understand the nature of language to be afraid of dogs? In other words, does he have to associate this particular experience or memory that he has now with words? He will eventually, even when he has this experience, if he hasn't learned to talk, eventually he will relate this experience to certain words that describe the reality or the nature of dogs based on his internal experience of them. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. What I want to get to, however, is that he has a first-time experience, and that first-time experience is transformed into a negatively charged energy, or transformed into a negatively charged memory, negatively charged memory. So that the next time he encounters a dog in the environment, what is going to happen? And why? Yes, he's going to associate based on the similarities of this second dog. His mind will automatically associate the second dog with the first dog, making them identical, correct? And as a result, what will his state of mind be? Fear or terror, right? Now, it turns out, let's say from the environment's perspective, this second dog that he encounters could be the friendliest dog in the world, could just be wanting to play with the child. From a dog's perspective, dog sees child, dog thinks play, and dog approaches child wanting to play. Child thinks he's being attacked. Dog never touches the child. From the child's perspective, was he attacked? Yes. He was attacked. You know why? Because it tapped him into all of the energy of that first experience, and he felt it as if it were happening right then and there in that moment. And so what we have from the child's perspective is a first-time experience that from the environment's perspective was real, a second-time experience that from the environment's perspective was not real, but that all the energy still got associated in his mind in a way where he reinforced the first-time experience so that the energy of this memory grew. So if he had, let's say, this much negative energy, now it's this much negative energy. And the next encounter with the dog, regardless of how friendly it is, he's going to experience the same thing, and instead of this much energy, there's going to be this much energy.
Even if it isn't a negative experience with the dog?
It will be a negative experience every time.
Anyway.
That's what I'm saying. You see, every experience will be negative because he's going to associate every dog with his memory so that the memories get reinforced. Psychologists would call this like a projection. I call it like an instantaneous association, meaning that what's really happening is that the energy in his mind is acting as a force on his senses to see a threatening or terrorizing circumstance or situation every time he comes into contact with a dog. What he's feeling inside is real. In other words, his state of mind is absolutely 100% real. How he got into that state of mind is not. In other words, how he got into that state of mind is basically dysfunctional. Because what happens is that he is making an instantaneous, like I said, psychologists would call this projection. He's projecting his internal energy onto that dog. Let's say this is the fifth or sixth encounter of him seeing a dog, and they've all been friendly except for the first one. And what happens is that his own terror gets reflected back to him. I don't want to say this. I want to say this differently. What's that? What?
In his mind, all dogs.
Yes, and we haven't talked about the actual concept yet. I'm just getting, going from the memory itself. But what happens is that as he, because the dog is in his field of awareness, and because he's experiencing the terror, he will project that terror onto that dog, saying that it's that dog that's making me feel this way. You guys with me on that? It is that dog that's making me feel this way. That particular dog isn't doing anything to him. Nothing at all. There was no possible way you could convince the child otherwise. As a matter of fact, trying to convince the child otherwise only does what? enforces it and really frustrates them, right? Because what you're really doing is in essence, you would be, from the child's perspective, not honoring his fear, not supporting it, and trying to invalidate it in a way where he just wouldn't be able to even remotely understand. Because the state of mind he's in is real. That is 100% reality. You can't deny our state of mind. You can't deny your state of mind. You can't deny someone else's state of mind. It doesn't make any difference what you might say. If we're confident, we're confident. If we're fearful, we're fearful. That is the truth. How we got into that state of mind, meaning whatever belief or memory that flipped us into that state of mind, may not be the truth at all relative to what the environment was offering.
After the first incident that created that.
Right, after the first incident, right? Yes, exactly. Because what happens is that as this experience gets reinforced, as this memory gets reinforced, his senses become particularly attuned to picking up the sights and sounds of dogs that otherwise wouldn't even exist in his field of awareness. So you can imagine a situation where he walks on his front porch, there's kids in the park playing across the street, his friends, that's an opportunity. He desires to be with his friends and to play with them and to have fun, right? He walks out on the porch and off in the distance he hears a dog bark. What's he going to do?
React.
And go back in the house, right? This is something that he would have been oblivious to if it weren't for the fact that fear causes us to narrow our focus of attention onto the object of our fear so that we create the very experience we're trying to avoid. So in this case, he's trying to avoid dogs because he believes that they're inherently dangerous. And what does he do? He created an experience of fear where it otherwise wouldn't even exist. The dog could have been 2 blocks away, 3 blocks away. It wouldn't have made any difference. And yet, from his perspective, this is a real experience. A valid and real experience. So what he ends up, when he gets to the point, when he gets old enough, where he's taught these words and concepts, he will, let's put it this way. No, let me do it this way. He could very well create a belief eventually he will learn to associate those memories, those particular memories, with these particular words and create a concept about the nature of the way the world works in relationship to dogs. This is called a belief, and it is structured energy. It is an abstract concept by itself, but once all the energy from his memories, this is really important. Now you need to get this. This is critically important. Once all the energy from his memories get attached to these words become reality. That will cause him to experience the world in a way that's completely consistent with these words. So that every time a dog comes into his field of awareness, he will experience the energy, the extreme negative energy that's in this concept. That's the state of mind he will flip into instantaneously. Now, in relationship to the environment, or what we know about the nature of dogs and the ways that they can express, all the different ways that they can express themselves, we know that this particular characteristic exists over here on the extreme end. And every other characteristic about the nature of dogs, this child is oblivious to. Remember, friendly, loving, loyal, playful. Remember those characteristics? Does this child have any capacity to perceive these characteristics? No, none, no capacity whatsoever. They do not exist in this child's mind anyway. In the environment they exist, in the child's mind they do not. In fact, it's impossible. Wouldn't even be considered. Can you think of a situation in which well, let's put it this way. How does a child, does he live his whole life like this? What?
It's possible.
He may. It's possible, right? It's very possible. What's likely to happen at some point? It gets changed? I don't know about how likely it is. There's something else that can happen that would be more likely. What?
Gets tempered.
Gets tempered, yes, okay.
Maybe he has a positive experience with it.
Maybe he has a positive experience. Depends on what you mean by that, because there are degrees of positive experience, because his experience is his ability to experience anything positive will be extremely limited. And why? Because remember, every time a dog comes into his field of awareness, it instantaneously taps him into this belief. Right? So how is he going to get out of this closed loop? He doesn't even know it's a closed loop. Remember that. He doesn't know it's a closed loop. You can tell him that all dogs aren't dangerous, and he will not believe you. And this is another area where parents get really frustrated with their kids when their kids are exhibiting what they consider to be an irrational fear, and they get mad when their kids don't respond to the fact that they tell them, well, you shouldn't be afraid. All they do is get madder. Go ahead.
Would it be likely if a child ran into a dog who wasn't dangerous, they would do something to invoke the dog to become dangerous to prove they were right?
Well, unlikely, only because they wouldn't be able to interact with the dog. They wouldn't even be able to interact with it.
Take it out of a child in an adult situation, which is
Maybe if the adult felt powerful enough.
well, not even a dog.
You know.
If you have a certain belief that causes you harm,
Oh yeah.
and you
Oh
find
sure.
an environment that doesn't, well, you
Absolutely.
sort of back to self-sabotage.
Sure.
To prove that you're right.
Exactly. Right. Absolutely. So, can we think of any circumstances in which, first of all, as John said, the belief might get tempered a bit? Tempered meaning, I only mean by tempered, he might even be able to perceive other possibilities. Because we're getting to a real critical concept here that you guys need to have for your trading. Remember, he's going to avoid dogs at all costs. There's no other possibilities that exist for him other than terror.
You see somebody else with a dog having a different experience?
Yes, okay, he might see somebody else. In other words, let's say he's in a circumstance where he's with his parents, he feels relatively safe and comfortable, and just without any foreknowledge, encounters an experience, or encounters a situation, put it that way, where, and I'm going to be specific, where kids his own age are playing with dogs and obviously having a great deal of fun. Maybe he walks around a corner or something, and all of a sudden he's confronted with this scene where kids, maybe 2 or 3 other kids, maybe kids that he even knows, his own age, that are playing with dogs and having a great time. Now, the dynamics. Based on what we've learned so far, what happens? First thing that happens.
Maybe a little energy gets taken out of that belief.
That's not the first thing that happens. What? That's still not the first thing that happens. You guys really, now just think of your, no.
He doubts his belief at that point.
Well, that's still not the first thing that
He wants
happens.
to go home? He wants to go
Come on. Yeah, well, come on, just don't think of this kid. Think of your own experiences. What happens when you encounter information, unanticipated, from the environment that completely contradicts what you believe to be true. What happens?
Confusion.
Confusion. Confusion. That is a natural state. Confusion is a natural state. That's what happens when we encounter information that conflicts what we believe to be true. We are confused. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Now, at some point, the confusion will kind of wear away a bit as he contemplates what it is that he experienced. And he, at that point, realizes that other possibilities exist beyond the limitations of his belief. Now, a bunch of things can happen. He can, one, decide that he wants to be like the other kids, meaning he wants to be able to play with dogs. He perceives the possibility of friendliness, which was impossible or even non-existent to him before this, virtually non-existent and unperceivable. Now think about the implications of what I just said. Non-existent and unperceivable. Until he inadvertently encountered this situation with undeniable information. In other words, the kid was very relatively normal, could not deny the fact that these kids were having fun, and they were not getting mauled or bitten by these dogs. Whenever we encounter information that conflicts what we believe to be true, that we find virtually undeniable, we go into a state of confusion until we can sort it out. So he realizes that other possibilities exist. Now what? What do I do? I want to be like the other kids. I want to be able to play with dogs. Okay, he makes up his mind in a sense, not to the extent like we talked about with the kind of conviction about what we talked about earlier, but he decides, let's say, I want to be able to play with dogs. Is he able to do it?
Probably not initially.
Not right away.
Yeah, right, not right away. He's going to have to go through a
He rationalizes it.
Well, no. He's going to have to go through a process, a step-by-step incremental process, just the same kind of step-by-step incremental process you're going to have to go through to instill those 5 fundamental truths about the nature of the market that cause you to think in probabilities. Anything can happen. Every moment is unique. I don't need to know what's going to happen next. I don't to make money. There's a random distribution between wins and losses and any given set of variables to define an edge.
I guess it's the same concept of starting off with 100 shares.
Yeah, right. Incremental, step-by-step process. How is this step-by-step process likely to occur? See, here's what's important here. He has a desire. He inadvertently, let's say, acquired a desire that is in direct conflict with what he believes to be true about the nature of reality. Now, just because he now is able to perceive a possibility that otherwise didn't exist, does that mean that all his fear has been dissipated? And if his fear has not been dissipated, then what we have is a classic conflict between what he desires and what his other belief about the nature of dogs would argue as being true and real. Okay? We have a classic conflict between his desire and what his beliefs say is true and real. So he could say, I want to play with dogs, but when he encounters another dog the next time, he might find the closest he could get to one might be 10 or 15 feet. That would be, in a sense, a positive encounter because nothing happened. Right? In other words, what we have are two contradictory beliefs. One that has an enormous amount of energy. All dogs are dangerous. And another dogs can be friendly. and playful, okay? We have two contradictory beliefs. One has enough energy, enough positive energy, that allows him to perceive the existence of other dogs without running away. That's about it. It allows him to perceive the existence of friendly dogs without running away. That's as far as it goes. But the next time he encounters another dog and nothing happens from a distance, it'll grow a little bit, and this one will come down a little bit. And the next one, this one will come down a little bit, and this one will grow a little bit. Come down, grow, come down, grow, until let's say they're about even.
Better not get bit by another dog.
Yeah, hopefully he won't encounter any other dangerous dogs or unfriendly dogs. But there will come a point at which these are relatively even, and at that point, once his desire, let's say, is 1 degree greater than this particular negative belief, it will allow him to touch a dog, to have a direct, in other words, instead of a distance experience, but have an actual direct experience with a dog, touch it, and if it turns out to be, a positive experience, what will happen is this belief, all the negative energy in this belief will basically collapse, dissipate, and this belief will go way up in positive energy, and he'll be able to interact with dogs. And at the same time, have the full range of distinctions about what dogs are all about, from positive to negative, from negative to positive. And at some point in his life, maybe he's an adult in his 40s or 50s or whatever, he might run into a situation where he sees some kid who's terrified of dogs, and in the way he'll describe that, he'll say, I remember when I used to be that way, but he'll say, I grew out of it. Isn't that typically what people say when they transcend a fear, a childhood fear? I grew out of it. In other words, he went through an inadvertent process, meaning he wasn't really conscious of what he was doing. He didn't really know that he was going through a process of collapsing one belief, one concept, and energizing another, more functional. Because in relationship to the nature of dogs and what's possible, was this particular concept, could we say that it was dysfunctional? Is this a dysfunctional concept or not?
Well, the process of getting to it after the fact is.
Well, no, is this a dysfunctional concept or not? You can see,
yes.
The reason what makes it dysfunctional is this right here.
Yes.
That's what makes it dysfunctional, okay?
Right.
See, we could say dogs can be dangerous, but what makes it dysfunctional is this word. Which brings up another issue. It's like, well, what's the truth? You see, if our beliefs limit what we are aware of and what we can experience in relationship to what exists, then what's the truth? What is it? What's the truth?
Some dogs are dangerous.
No, I mean more philosophically, what's the truth?
How the external environment interacts with what you believe.
Well, close, yeah.
True.
What?
Whatever you believe to be true.
Well, yeah, everyone believes that what they believe is the truth, but how do we know what the truth is? There's a way of knowing. There's an easy way of knowing. There really is. Whatever works. Whatever works. Right? Now think about this. If what I believe causes me to perceive and interpret information in a way that's consistent with what I believe, if what I believe determines what I expect, if what I believe determines what I do, the decisions I make, and how I behave, in relationship to my desires, my goals, my needs, my wants, which cause me or literally force me to interact with all these external forces to fulfill my goals, my needs, and my wants and my desires, then the particular set of steps I take to fulfill this is going to be based on what I believe is true in any given set of circumstances or situations, right? So I interact with these forces based on what I believe is true. If I feel satisfied, then whatever I believed must have corresponded with the environmental conditions as they existed. And so whatever I believe must be true because it worked. If it didn't work, or the degree to which it didn't work, then you could say that my beliefs were to some degree dysfunctional in relationship to the environmental conditions and what was available from the environment. I didn't know the appropriate set of steps based on the environmental conditions, or what I wanted wasn't available, or wasn't available to the quantity or degree to which I believed it would be available. Does that make sense? In any case, what I believe will determine what I perceive. If I perceived it to be available and it wasn't, then it's not the environment's fault. You guys with me on this?
It's a vicious circle.
That's right, exactly. Because everything we do is based on what we believe, and therefore, and since we do it and we experience whatever we believe, we reinforce the belief.
That's why a trader's very first 2 or 3 trades is going to dictate what he does for the next.
Could, absolutely, sure.
But you're saying that if you believe works, that's a closed loop? I would think that opens a loop.
Well, it doesn't mean your belief's going to continue to work. See, most beliefs create these closed loops. For an example, I have a belief in the structural integrity of this chair. Okay? And as a result of my belief in the structural integrity of this chair, I will sit down and not have any problem, not even think about it, right? But what's interesting is that because the environment or because the universe is constantly expanding, and because everything that's made of atoms and molecules is in motion, my beliefs can remain static in relationship, or will remain static unless I do something to change that energy or change the concepts. My beliefs remain static in relationship to a constantly changing environment, meaning that this chair is deteriorating over time. It doesn't seem like it now. I cannot perceive it being actually deteriorating. But if we could come back, this chair would stay here for the next 1,000 years or 2,000 years, especially if it's made out of wood. We would come back and it still might be standing just the way it is, but if I were to go sit on it based on my belief in its structural integrity, I would sit and fall to the floor, would I not?
And you're saying it's only then when you open up that closed loop before it.
See, the belief worked. The belief works now. It won't work over time.
But you're saying there has to be a counter-reaction for that belief to have to alter, otherwise it can't.
Well, yeah, the counter reaction. Well, we're going to get into the counter reactions. Yeah, it takes energy to move energy. Now, that energy can come from different sources. It can come as, like I say in the discipline trader, a forced awareness, meaning that I sat down in the chair, it collapsed. The environment forced me to become aware of the fact that my belief was dysfunctional. Or we can do it as a result of a conscious choice. We can make an assessment. I mean, you wouldn't be here in this moment right now if you may not have thought of it this way, but you wouldn't be here at this seminar if your beliefs about the nature of trading were working. Would you? They might be working to some degree, but not be working to the degree to which you are satisfied with. Or like I said, you just wouldn't be sitting here. Now, this is the important concept that I wanted you to get out of this, however. Well, there are many, but right now I want you to really pay particular attention to the fact that he had a desire that was in conflict with what he believed to be true. What won out in terms of his ability to express himself? At least in the initial stages, until the energy started balancing out. What wins out?
The belief.
The belief. Whatever has the most energy. Put it that way. Whatever has the most energy is what wins. We will express ourselves in a way that's consistent with whatever has the most energy, regardless of what the conflict, in other words, regardless of what you may want. Meaning that it is possible to acquire a desire that is in conflict with what we believe to be true. And we may not even be aware of the belief that's in conflict with our desire. We may not even be aware of it. It may have been something we learned in our childhood. But what we're going to learn in a moment is that it doesn't matter when we learned it. If there's energy in it, it will have the potential to act on our perception and on our behavior, regardless of what our desire is.
I just want to make sure I got that.
Okay.
What you're saying is, if my desire is strong enough, it can cause me to look at my belief or take some of the energy out of my belief.
Yeah, desire is the key.
Yeah.
The intensity of your desire. Your desire is strong enough. Remember I said if you make up your mind with conviction, you can move energy?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say it that way earlier this morning. I said you can neutralize the conflicts.
Right.
That's in essence what I was saying. If you make up your mind with such a strong degree of conviction, you can actually neutralize conflicting beliefs just by merely making up your mind. And in some cases that'll happen. It really will. There are things that you will look at in relationship to your sense of dissatisfaction and say, you know what, I get it now, and this is it. This is not who I am anymore. This is not who I am. And resolve that from this moment forward, this is who I am. And if it's strong enough, it'll be enough to move that negative energy out, or that energy period, and what I'm just going to call a dysfunctional belief. Dysfunctional only in the sense that from the environment's perspective, in relationship to what you want, it doesn't work. What we're going to be learning later on this afternoon is that you don't have to attach so much importance to what you learn to believe. Meaning that people have this sense that their beliefs are their identity. And you don't have to look at your beliefs as being so much a part of your identity, but simply something that might be useful in the moment. So for an example, this particular sweater was useful, I put it on. When it's no longer useful, I take it off. When it really becomes dysfunctional, I throw it away. And believe it or not, you can look at your beliefs the same way. You weren't born with any of them. You've inadvertently changed some of them throughout your life. All you're doing now is altering some of them based on your desire to fulfill certain desires and goals. That's all you're doing. And if you believe it's all right, the process will go a lot easier. If you don't believe it's all right, that's one of the first beliefs you're going to have to work on, is why it isn't all right to change a belief. Because there are people who really arduently believe, that it's not all right to change a belief. It's not all right. So therefore, that would be the first thing they'd have to work on, is making it all right. is drawing the energy out of the belief that says it's not. And if this makes any sense, which it should, is that the stronger you believe that it is all right to just alter your beliefs when it suits your purposes, the faster it goes and the easier the process is. Okay, where are we? What time is it?
20 to 12.
20 to 12? Oh, okay. I know what I got to do. Now, and this will finish us up just before lunch, Tim. We got the child, the circumstance in which the child desires to be like the other kids, and so he goes into, let's say, an active process of transformation, but doesn't really understand it in the way that I'm organizing it right now. What about the kid that, let's say, doesn't care about being like the other kids or cares about even playing with dogs? What happens to him? Now, again, I'm going to ask you to answer this question or try to answer it based on your own personal experiences. Try to put it within the context of your own personal experiences. You've got a situation. He has a negatively charged belief about the nature of the way dogs exist. He confronts, inadvertently is confronted with information that contradicts this belief, making it, in essence, not true. Meaning not true in the sense all dogs are not dangerous. The all is the critical active word here. But also at the same time has no desire to interact with dogs. Now, his experience allows him to now perceive the possibility of interacting with dogs on a friendly basis, but he has no desire to do so. So what we have in this person's mental environment is an active contradiction that will probably remain that way for his whole life. He will be able to perceive the possibility of interacting with dogs, but the way he'll rationalize his inability to do so, and I say his inability because what will determine his ability to interact with dogs? What has the most energy? That's right. What has the most energy? So he will rationalize his inability to interact with dogs with, I know they're not dangerous, but I don't want to touch them anyway. Okay? I don't want to touch them anyway. I don't like dogs. The example I use in trading in the zone was a trader that I worked with from Brazil that terrified of snakes, doesn't remember why, doesn't remember any particular experience, just always knows, or always just, as far as his recollection goes back, he's always been afraid of snakes. His wife went to New York to visit some relatives. He was left taking care of, I think at the time she was maybe 2.5-year-old daughter, 3, I don't remember exactly how old. Went over to a friend's house, and he didn't know, who also has a 2.5 or 3-year-old daughter, but didn't know that the friend had a snake. The two kids go into the room, and I guess, I don't know if there was supervision or not, but came out of the room, and his daughter had the snake wrapped around her. And he saw this and literally jumped across the room. I mean, he just flew. And his first reaction, other than being terrified of the fact that he was confronted with a snake, was the fact that it was wrapped around his daughter and the fact that she wasn't afraid. That perplexed him, deeply perplexed him, thinking that that's his daughter, that somehow or another she should also be afraid of the snake too, right? But because she's had no personal experience with snakes that's negative, it was just pure fascination to her. Now, how would he explain his behavior? Does he know that there are obviously dangerous and non-dangerous snakes? Well, yeah, one was wrapped around his 3-year-old kid. So he knows the snakes aren't dangerous. Could he touch that snake? No. The way he'll explain that is that I don't want to. That's just an active contradiction. In other words, there's enough energy inside his mental environment to be able to perceive the existence of non-dangerous snakes, no desire to change it, and so he'll just live with this active contradiction for the rest of his life. Is this making sense to everybody? Now, the next example I want to give is, let's take a kid who's never had a negative experience with a dog. Never ever experienced a non-friendly dog. Can you tell this kid that you can get bit? You can tell him. Is he going to listen? No, he's not. And why should he? Now you think about it, why should he? He's never experienced never had a negative experience with a dog. He has an energized concept, a powerfully energized concept that says that all dogs are fun, or all dogs are friendly, or there's no threat whatsoever. It wouldn't even use the word threat because it doesn't even wouldn't even enter into his frame of mind about the nature of dogs, because they're all non-threatening. Now, let's say he does encounter a non-friendly dog and gets bit. What happens? What are the dynamics involved here? What's going to happen with him?
Transformation.
Okay, go ahead, John. What do you say? It just,
I mean, you're going in the inverse there. You have a belief that was held to be true.
right.
You have an experience that diminishes the energy of what that belief was, and your counterbalance is open for the first time. That loop opens.
The loop opens.
And its seesaw effect is where
Good.
now you can start to see where one gains strength and one loses strength.
Good. Excellent. Would this experience cause him to not ever interact with dogs any longer?
Not yet.
Under normal circumstances, you're right, it won't. But I can think of a circumstance in which it would. But I'll tell you about that in a second, okay? It's just that what's going to happen is exactly what John said. He's going to now be able to perceive the other side of the continuum. Where that side was virtually non-existent to him, he's now able to perceive the possibility of and make the distinction between dogs that are friendly and dogs that aren't. Where before he couldn't make that distinction at all. But it isn't necessarily going to cause him never to interact with dogs again. He's just going to be more careful. But I can certainly think of a situation where he could not ever interact with dogs again. Based on another belief. Anybody think of anything?
Based on a belief, not
Based on another belief that comes into play. What if he has a highly evolved belief in betrayal?
From other experiences, having been betrayed, this opens up the possibility that this becomes
That's right.
as well.
In other words, if he has a good, John, this is great. If he has a highly evolved belief in betrayal, what'll happen, or what could happen, is that he would say, you know what? If one dog can betray me, all dogs can betray me. And all that positive energy that he had about the nature of dogs will now get switched into a belief that is completely negative. And he will no longer interact with dogs. All the energy still got associated in his mind in a way where he reinforced the first time experience so that the energy of this memory grew. So if he had, let's say, this much negative energy, now it's this much negative energy. And the next encounter with the dog, regardless of how friendly it is going to experience the same thing, and instead of this much energy, there's going to be this much energy.
Even if it isn't a negative experience with the dog?
It will be a negative experience every time. That's what I'm saying. You see, every experience will be negative because he's going to associate every dog with his memory so that the memories get reinforced. Psychologists would call this like a projection. I call it like an instantaneous association, meaning that what's really happening is that the energy in his mind is acting as a force on his senses to see a threatening or terrorizing circumstance or situation every time he comes into contact with a dog. What he's feeling inside is real. In other words, his state of mind is absolutely 100% real. How he got into that state of mind is not. In other words, how he got into that state of mind is basically dysfunctional. Because what happens is that he is making an instantaneous, like I said, psychologists will call this projection. He's projecting his internal energy onto that dog. Let's say this is the 5th or 6th encounter of him seeing a dog, and they've all been friendly. And because he's experiencing the terror, he will project that terror onto that dog, saying that it's that dog that's making me feel this way. Okay, you guys with me on that? It is that dog that's making me feel this way. That particular dog isn't doing anything to him. Nothing at all. There was no possible way you could convince the child otherwise. As a matter of fact, trying to convince the child otherwise is only does what? Enforces it and really frustrates them, right? Because what you're really doing is in essence, you would be, from the child's perspective, not honoring his fear, not supporting it, and trying to invalidate it in a way where he just wouldn't be able to even remotely understand. Because the state of mind he's in is real. That is 100% reality. You can't deny our state of mind. You can't deny your state of mind. You can't deny someone else's state of mind. It doesn't make any difference what you might say. If we're confident, we're confident. If we're fearful, we're fearful. That is the truth. How we got into that state of mind, meaning whatever belief or memory that flipped us into that state of mind, may not be the truth at all relative to what the environment was offering.
After the first incident created that.
Right, after the first incident, right? Yes, exactly. Because what happens is that as this experience gets reinforced, as this memory gets reinforced, his senses become particularly attuned to picking up the sights and sounds of dogs that otherwise wouldn't even exist in his field of awareness. So you can imagine a situation where he walks on his front porch, there's kids in the park playing across the street, his friends, that's an opportunity. He desires to be with his friends and to play with them and to have fun, right? He walks out on the porch and off in the distance he hears a dog bark. What's he going to do? And go back in the house, right? This is something that he would have been oblivious to if it weren't for the fact that fear causes us to narrow our focus of attention onto the object of our fear so that we create the very experience we're trying to avoid. So in this case, he's trying to avoid dogs because he believes that they're inherently dangerous. And what does he do? He created an experience of fear where it otherwise wouldn't even exist. The dog could have been 2 blocks away, 3 blocks away. It wouldn't have made any difference. And yet, from his perspective, this is a real experience. A valid and real experience. So what he ends up, when he gets to the point, when he gets old enough, where he's taught these words and concepts, he will let's put it this way. Now let me do it this way. He could very well create a belief eventually he will learn to associate those memories, those particular memories, with these particular words, and create a concept.
Okay, I have like 3 more. 1, 2, 3, 4 more. 4 more to do. I'm gonna finish them this morning, but I'm gonna finish it after the stream. On the stream, I usually just stop at 8:30, whether I'm backtesting or whatever I'm doing for that day. Okay. Let me bring up the chat. Pause that. Okay, cool. Oops. Okay, there you go. All right, guys. There's there's nothing here. I forgot. There's nothing to do today. Probably Monday. I like this Euro USD setup. See if I get the same thing on the weekly forecast. Looks like I'm starting to move a little too fast. Nah, we'll just check gold real quick. Gold is pushing up. It hasn't done anything actually since last we looked at it. And it's like I said, in my opinion, it's not worth doing anything there. This one, I'm looking for this pattern to fail and price to come back up. Bitcoin, I'm looking for it to just keep on scaling up. And I'm planning on adding to this. I'm gonna keep on adding to this, honestly. But believe that's it, guys. There's nothing else, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the call there. Appreciate you guys watching and hitting the like button. I really appreciate you guys hitting the like button, you know. Also subscribe if you want to keep up with future content, and I will catch you guys later.
That will cause him to experience the world in a way that's completely consistent with these words. So that every time a dog comes into his field of awareness, he will experience the energy, the extreme negative energy that's in this concept. That's the state of mind he will flip into instantaneously. Now, in relationship to the environment, or what we know about the nature of dogs and the ways that they can express, all the different ways that they can express themselves, we know that this particular characteristic exists over here on the extreme end. And every other characteristic about the nature of dogs, this child is oblivious to. Remember, friendly, loving, loyal, playful. Remember those characteristics? Does this child have any capacity to perceive these characteristics? No, none, no capacity whatsoever. They do not exist in this child's mind anyway. In the environment they exist, in the child's mind they do not. In fact, it's impossible. Wouldn't even be considered. Can you think of a situation in which well, let's put it this way. How does a child, does he live his whole life like this? What?
It's possible.
He may. It's possible, right? It's very possible. What's likely to happen at some point?
So
it gets changed. I don't know about how likely it is. There's something else that can happen that'd be more